Welcome to Module 5 in the Test Security Training Module series. OSSE's Office of Assessment has developed a series of training modules to prepare LEA test coordinators for Spring 2021 statewide assessment administration. There are 6 required training modules. These modules are required for all LEA test coordinators, including those responsible for access and alternate access, MSAA, and PARC. The modules follow the order of activities in the assessment coordination timeline. Upon the completion of all training materials, LEA test coordinators will need to complete a quiz and certification form, verifying that they have viewed all content. A score of 80% or higher on the quiz will serve as an official attendance and completion of the 2021 Test Security Training Series. In Module 5, we will cover test administration, prohibitive actions, and incident reports. Please note that Module 4 also covers some aspects of test administration as well. This assessment coordination timeline shows the activities needed in order to complete statewide assessment administration in the District of Columbia. The color and shape of each icon indicates who is performing each task. Each training module provides detailed information on the activities in the assessment coordination timeline. In this module, we will cover the steps highlighted in the orange dotted lines. Test administration. OSSE's goal is to develop and provide statewide assessments that yield fair and accurate results. To do this, schools and LEAs are to administer assessments to the best of their ability in consistent and standardized conditions. The best way for us to support schools and LEAs in administering quality assessments is to ensure educators understand and recognize acceptable and unacceptable assessment practices. First thing we'll talk about is administering statewide tests to students. Test security reminder. All authorized personnel are required to maintain security and integrity of all testing materials, locations, and content during the test window. Any deviations, breaches, or incidents must be reported to OSSE as soon as they are discovered. For test coordinators and test administrators responsible for remote PARC administration, these requirements should be followed to the best of your ability and in accordance with policies and protocols established by your LEA. The following directives must be followed by all authorized personnel during test administration for all statewide assessments. Test administrators and proctors should follow all test security and administration guidance to securely administer assessments to students. All authorized personnel should refrain from committing prohibitive actions during test administration. In instances where there are exceptional or special circumstances during test administration, the school test coordinator must make a plan with OSSE to ensure administration can continue. As a reminder, parents or caregivers who have students participating in remote testing are not test administrators or proctors. Caregivers may assist students with logging in, but it is expected that the test administrator assists students with any assessment-related questions or tasks during testing. Schools will indicate their plan for communicating with students and responding to issues during remote testing in their school test security plan. Prohibitive actions during test administration. Under the Test Integrity Act of 2013, all authorized personnel are prohibited from test fraud and academic coaching, cheating, and test tampering. Failure to comply with these prohibitions is a violation of test security. The following slides provide additional detail about each of these prohibitive actions, which apply to all statewide assessments administered in person or remotely. Test fraud and coaching. Reviewing, reading, or looking at test items or student responses before, during, or after administration of the statewide assessment unless specifically permitted in the test administration manual is prohibited. Authorized personnel should not interact with any content on any secure assessment. Authorized personnel should not look at or review any test content or any student responses, including on scratch paper. Assisting students in any way with answers to test questions using verbal or nonverbal cues before, during, or after administering the assessment is also prohibited. Examples of this include answering test or content-specific questions posed by students, interacting in any way with student responses, including on scratch paper, providing verbal or nonverbal cues to indicate performance, such as good job, or check your work, or shaking your head, that is not provided in the test manual is also prohibited. For remote testing, these prohibitive actions also apply to any caregivers present in the testing environment. Please note that a test administrator may need to read test content if they are administering an accommodation that requires it. For example, human reader or human signer. In those cases, test administrators are to follow all appropriate directions in the test administration manual to ensure they are maintaining test security. As a reminder, parents and caregivers who have students participating in the remote setting are not test administrators or proctors. It is expected that test administrators assist students with any assessment-related questions and tasks during testing. Prohibitive actions for cheating. The following actions are prohibited during test administration of all statewide assessments: allowing any form of cheating, failing to actively supervise students at all times during test sessions, allowing students to view or practice secure test items before or after the scheduled testing time, using or allowing students to use unapproved electronics or cell phones during administration of a statewide assessment, allowing students to use notes, references, or other aids unless the test administration manual or an approved accommodation specifically allows. Some examples of cheating include giving students answers, changing answers or responses of students' work at any point, allowing students to use notes, textbooks, or other aids that they do not have an accommodation for. Supervising students taking remote park assessments will look different than supervising students in a school setting. The test administrator is required to have some way to communicate with students during testing and must create a plan for monitoring testing remotely. Best practices for monitoring students during remote testing are outlined in the remote supplements for the test coordinator and test administrator manuals. Please note that during park remote administration, cell phones may be used to contact test administrators or test coordinators for assistance in accordance with protocols established by the school or LEA. Test tampering. Examples of test tampering include altering student responses in any manner, photocopying or in any way reproducing or disclosing secure test items or test materials related to statewide assessments, altering the test procedures stated in the normal instructions accompanying the statewide assessments, having in one's possession secure materials except during scheduled testing dates and times, and making or having in one's possession answer keys before the administration of the statewide assessment, except that it should not be prohibited to have an answer key for a statewide assessment that has already been administered and released by OSSE previously. Some additional examples of test tampering include leaving secure test materials in a non-secure location or unattended by authorized personnel, making false certification of any statewide assessment forms established or required by OSSE, being present in the testing environment or handling test material from one's own child or family member, failing to count all test booklets and answer documents before allowing any pupil to leave the testing room or ensure that all pupils have properly logged off the computer system, and failing to observe the test material chain of custody procedures as outlined in the school test security plan. For park remote administration, LEAs in schools will develop a plan for handling of secure materials for students testing remotely, as detailed in the remote testing supplement. As a reminder, parents and caregivers supporting remote administration are not considered authorized personnel and should not be viewing or handling secure test materials. Only the student involved in the testing assessment should be in the testing environment when possible. Additional test administrator guidance. In addition to the guidance in the Test Integrity Act, the assessment administration manuals clearly specify what can and cannot be said during secure testing. The Park Remote Testing Supplement provides additional guidance for remote administration. Test administrators are expected to follow the scripts provided in the assessment administration manuals. Test administrators and proctors and caregivers supporting remote administration may provide support to students when logging in. Technology coordinators may address technology issues such as computers freezing, batteries dying, students getting kicked off the platform. Please note, this does not include guidance on how to use the accessibility features on the platform. Practice with the platform functionalities must be completed prior to testing. As a reminder, caregivers are only permitted to assist with logging in. From there, any issues students may have must be raised with the appropriate authorized school personnel. Exceptions to prohibitive actions. Failure to comply with prohibitions will not be considered a violation if the action is necessary to provide for the accommodation explicitly identified in an IEP, 504, or EL plan, or limited to supporting students to stay on track and be focused. Supporting students to stay on track and focus include announcing to the entire testing room the time remaining on the test, announcing to the entire testing group, reminding students to stay on task, announcing to the entire testing group, reminding students to abide by school and or LEA rules and or processes, verbally but with minimal disruption to other students, waking up students who have fallen asleep while testing, and verbally but with minimal disruption to other students, addressing an individual student's disruptive behavior, reminding students to stay on task and focus during the assessment, and providing visual cues to individual students to remain on task. Exceptional circumstances during test administration. For absences and makeups, makeup testing should be included in the schedule in the school test plan. Schools may schedule makeup tests across grades and subjects in the same room, but timing should also be the same. Students are not allowed to return to a testing session which they have exited after starting, except if approved by OSSE. For homebound students must participate in testing if possible. The test monitor must work with the test integrity coordinator and notify OSSE in their school plan. For testing in alternate sites, all eligible public school students are to participate in testing when possible. The test monitor must work with the test coordinator to identify a plan for testing students and communicate that with all. For homeschool students may participate in testing, but testing is voluntary. Test monitors must work with the LEA on participation and notify OSSE in the school test plan. Students with significant medical emergencies. These students may apply for a medical exemption with support of a physician. Schools may apply to OSSI for an exception using the medical exemption form that can be found on OSSI's School Test Security and Incident Reports webpage. In the instances of weather, natural disasters, fire alarms, or school-wide emergencies, if there are any of these emergencies that require evacuation, please follow the school and LEA's emergency protocols. It's important that student safety is first, so please make sure that school students and staff are safe, and you can document whatever has happened to the materials and submit an incident report after the emergency has been rectified. We acknowledge that park remote testing may result in other exceptional circumstances not captured here. Additional guidance on handling exceptional circumstances during remote testing can be found in the test coordinator and test administration manuals, as well as the remote testing supplements. Non-public placements. LEAs must ensure that all eligible students enrolled at their LEA, including students in non-public settings, participate in statewide assessments. Non-publics are considered schools and campuses under the purview of the LEA. Non-public schools must also assign a non-public test coordinator who will be responsible for coordinating assessments for students in their placements. Non-publics are required to comply with all guidance provided in the Test Integrity Act as amended, test security guidelines, vendor manuals, as well as all of the information provided in these test security training modules. Additionally, non-public test coordinators are responsible for creating school test plans and submitting them to OSSI. The next thing we'll discuss is submitting incident reports to OSSI. There are many incidents, deviations, or issues that may occur during test administration that should be promptly communicated to OSSI. Some of those things, such as minor deviations, will need to be communicated in the school test security plan. Minor deviations from the testing plan, such as changes in authorized personnel, minor timing changes, changes of the information presented in an approved test plan, must be included in minor deviations. Changes to test schedules should be reported and re-uploaded in a new test schedule in the test security plan. Other incidents and deviations may need to be communicated in the test security file. Things that need to be included in the file include all reported test security and integrity incidents, and additional test administration concerns that may not result in a breach of security of test materials or content, but may be something that you'd like to keep note of in case something else comes up later. Lastly, specific incidents and breaches in security need to be communicated via the OSSI support tool, the OSSI hotline, or the OSSI website as an incident report. Things that need to be communicated in this way are all breaches of test security and integrity during administration and all accommodation misadministrations. Any known incidents are also to be reported to OSSI during remote park test administration. Schools are to communicate with students as to the importance of sharing with test administrators and their proctors if any issues arise during testing. School-based staff are accountable for providing guidance and training and for alerting OSSI as any incidents may occur. We acknowledge that there may be things that happen in the remote test environment that a test administrator or proctor may not witness and therefore would not be able to flag as an incident. When to submit an incident report to OSSI. The following should be documented with an incident report to OSSI. When a student becomes ill or injured and cannot complete a testing session they've already started, students or staff members are in possession of a cell phone or unauthorized device or uses said device in an active testing environment, Students and or staff take actions that could constitute cheating or coaching. Students and or staff are in possession of materials that could constitute cheating. Secure materials are lost or left unsupervised. Students do not receive appropriate accommodations. All students must leave the testing environment due to an emergency or drill, or a technical issue that causes students to not be able to complete an active testing session before the close of the school day. The following things do not need to be documented as an incident report, but may need to be communicated in a different way. The first would be if technical issues cause minor delays in testing time for a student or group of students. While this is not an incident because the students will be able to finish testing within their time, it may be something that you would want to keep in your test security file as a reference. The second would be assigning a student a different device during testing. This is also something that is not a breach in security, so would not need to be reported to OSSI via incident report, but it may be something that you'd want to keep in your test security file for future reference. The next would be if a student's behavior does not disrupt a testing session or interfere with the other students in the class or their ability to complete a testing session. So if a student is disruptive during class in person and they need to be removed, that does not need to be submitted in an incident report either. That is also something that you can put in your test security file and continue testing. Another thing that does not need to be reported as an incident report is substituting test administrators or proctors. This is something that can be communicated via a minor deviation in your school test security plan. As mentioned earlier, for remote park administration, test administrators and proctors will similarly alert OSSI to any known incidents in accordance with this guidance. There are many ways you can submit incident reports to OSSI. The first way and the suggested way is the OSSI support tool application called the OST. This application is available to all LEA test coordinators and is the required way for LEA test coordinators to submit incidents to OSSI. Submitting a test plan using the OST will ensure that OSSI has an ability to communicate directly with LEA test coordinators to provide next steps and guidance for the incident that has been reported. Any other person other than the LEA test coordinator who does not have access to the OST may submit an incident report using the OSSI online incident report form. This can be used for anonymous people and other authorized personnel who do not have access to the OST. The link on the slide will take you to the online form as needed. The last way to communicate an incident, particularly for incidents that are an emergency or need immediate attention, would be to contact OSSI during using the assessment hotline. The number to the hotline is 202-304-3269. This hotline is available for authorized personnel and anonymous sources, but should only be used in the instance of an emergency. If an authorized personnel calls the hotline for an incident report, they still may be required to submit a written report using either the OSSI support tool or an incident reporting form. There are a few ways to update your school test plan after it's been submitted. If you have a minor deviation to the school's test security plan, such as a change in test administrator or a small timing adjustment, starting late due to a minor technology issue or etc., you should log this information in minor deviations text box in your school test security plan on an ongoing basis. If your testing schedule changes or your list of authorized personnel change, please update those attachments in the school test security plan. If you have a change in setting from in-person or remote or vice versa, a new test security plan should be submitted. Due to the changing nature of school schedules, we are prepared for these type of changes to occur. OSSI may request a fact-finding inquiry or a plan to improve to be completed by the school during testing. These are only required if OSSI alerts the school or LEA that one is needed. These additional documents will be uploaded as attachments to your school test plan. A test security reminder. Incident reports must be submitted to OSSI as soon as potential test security violations are discovered. It is essential that OSSI has time to mitigate any issues that arise from an incident as soon as possible. This completes Module 5 of the training series. Please move on to Module 6, where we will cover administration closeout and reporting. If you have any questions about OSSI assessment policies or specific assessment programs, please feel free to reach out to the appropriate member of the OSSI assessment team. Thank you.